Okay, so in the last episode we learnt that the ego exists in all human beings, and it has this incredible ingenious capacity to bond us to all manner of things. Yes, a thought is a thing too. The ego shapes every thought that passes through our mind, and it does it in ways that are, well, unthinkable. This is because the ego is involved in every thought, and so it is impossible to fully understand how the ego shapes our lives by thinking about it. The ego shapes those thoughts too. In fact, the more we think about it, the more the ego dominates us. So how do we get beyond the limitations of thought and the trickery of the ego? How do we release the energy locked up by the ego and all our attachments to things? Here's one way. Stop. Concentrate on a single sensation for a couple of minutes. It might be a candle flame, a flower, a cloud, the breath, anything. Become mindful of this one thing. You will probably find, though, that very soon the ego comes bustling in and tries to muscle in on your mindfulness with all manner of thoughts about other things. Don't get fired up about the ego intruding into your mindfulness. Simply be grateful, say thank you, and become mindful again of the thing you have chosen to concentrate on. Soon you will find the mind has become stiller. All those thoughts attaching us to things that normally crowd your mind tend to stop jiggling about, and the energy locked up in their bonds is released. Now we know from the conservation principle of energy that energy is always conserved and never lost. Rather, it is continually transforming. In this case, the energy of the ego's bonds is transformed and released for the use of your greater being. With the breaking of the mind's very powerful bonds to things, the relationship between the human being and the universal flux generally becomes a little more energized and stable, or if you like, a little more harmonious. Sure, the ego manages to get us to form new bonds to things, but these tend to be less powerful. And each time a bond to a thing is broken, there is a little more energy released for our general use. We experience greater vitality in the moment. Maybe you have noticed the paradox. People who enjoy stillness tend to radiate more warmth, more energy, and they are more able to be with you. Similarly, we all know very egotistical human beings and corporations too. They are self-centered and demanding. They are a bit like black holes. They seem to suck energy out of people orbiting close to them and generate disharmony. The important thing to know is we break the ego's bonds to things all the time. However, often we are not really aware of it because the ego constantly works in most ingenious ways to ensure we forget those moments. It is the supreme master at distraction and reforming bonds to things again. There are many ways of enjoying stillness and breaking our attachments to things. We could sit under a tree for many days meditating as the Buddha did. We can give the moment to experiencing that cloud or flower. We can become mindful of what we are doing. And we can become mindful of our symbol use. Every action we make, including every thought in the form of spoken or written words, forms a symbol. In fact, you can say the first symbol began not when human beings first had conscious thoughts, but rather when people first became compassionate and mindful of the symbols we use. You see, every living cell uses symbols to survive and procreate. They are very potent. Without symbols, there is no life. And that, of course, means there are no human beings. We risk causing our own extinction too when we make flawed uses of symbols. This is because they simultaneously reflect and generate the state of our being. Because our every action, which includes our every thought, is a symbol, then the question thus arises, does our use of a symbol work to sustain or destroy us? The moment we became conscious of this potential for good and bad, we immediately became stewards of our actions, which includes being stewards of all of what we say. It was because our ancient ancestors enjoyed compassion and embraced this role as stewards that civilization emerged. By being careful in their use of symbols, they released a great deal of energy that would otherwise have been locked up by the ego in self-destructive activities. It's not an easy task. The ego's power to generate self-deceit is incredible. And all too often individuals and societies succumb to the wiles and the ways of the ego. Our Anglo-American society is no exception, and currently we are at great risk. Barbarism is rife again, and too many of us are lost in mass self-deceit. We have forgotten it is possible to transcend the ego and break our bonds to things. In the next episode, we see how it is possible to use symbols so we can better transcend the ego and release much of the energy locked up in our attachment to things.